Just when I think you're trying to push me away, Chibnall, you pull me right back in. Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, written by Nina Mativier. I'm gonna say it that way. It might be Mativier. After the misstep of Orphan 55, the one thing that usually tends to get me back on good graces with Chibnall's reign on the show is when he gives me a good historical, because as I've said before, and I've said it many times, my favorite episodes of his run have been the historicals. And when I found out they were going to jump into Nikola Tesla, I got really excited. I'm not an expert on Tesla, but I do know that, well, let's face it, he was the Bill Finger of the industrial world. And without his ideas, we wouldn't have, like, any of our technological advancements today. And unfortunately, his legacy has been very cruelly eclipsed by captains of industry, people who basically tried to ape his creations and tried to fob them off as their own. Of course, the big one is the Dick Stain of Menlo Park, Thomas Edison. And Edison shows up in this episode as well, and their rivalry actually does play a pivotal role in this story. But getting ahead of myself. In this one, Nikola Tesla is played by Goran Visnjic, who most people might remember from Practical Magic, ER. I remember him from the movie The Deep End with Tilda Swinton. Fantastic actor, and was an excellent choice to play Nikola Tesla. And in the realm of Doctor Who, definitely is up to the task. How is he as Nikola Tesla? Let's face it, he's not a touch on David Bowie. Now, the hazard with a lot of historicals is whether or not the figment of history actually has any kind of major play in the story. But the reason why I've always felt that Chibnall has been doing really well with these historicals is the fact that he makes sure that the historical figures represented here actually does play a major factor in what's going on in the story as a whole. Yes, Tesla is a brilliant innovator, light years ahead of Edison, but unfortunately the one thing Edison has over Tesla is that he has an excellent mind for business. He knows how to acquire things. He knows how to get people to take these ideas and make them possible. That was unfortunately what he was especially good at, and Tesla not so much. And if Tesla did have some kind of instinct for it, things might have turned out a whole lot differently. He wouldn't have been as constantly beset on all sides by people who were trying to steal his ideas. Unfortunately, as time went on, Tesla did kind of fall into the background of history. It wasn't until recently that people came to the realization of all the amazing things that he had done and how no one wanted to give him the satisfaction because people were terrified of it, because his ideas were so grand and so far ahead of where other people were at this time period. People thought he was this psychotic magician. And the episode does a really good job putting this particular aspect of Tesla's life on display in some really good moments where you're seeing people protesting his technology, and even with Edison setting up smear campaigns to make people even more scared of him. Now you're wondering, where does Tesla's rivalry with Edison come into play with, of course, the world of Doctor Who, where we have aliens coming in? Well, that's where I think the aliens in this one, the Skithra, really stood out. Specifically because they had a very interesting modus operandi. Yes, they are conquerors, you know, the usual shtick, but the way they go about it is so thoroughly pathetic. They, as you discover, are the Edisons of space, where all they do is just swipe from superior technology from all these other civilizations and just repurpose them for their own means. These are aliens that have no imagination whatsoever, and they feel like they don't need it because all they have to do is just keep swiping tech from all these other races with superior firepower and just use it to cause havoc. The reason why they are hunting down Nikola Tesla is because he's the most brilliant mind on Earth, and they need someone with that kind of inventiveness to be able to take the technology that they have harvested to make it into far more devastating weapons of destruction. Now, I've been hearing a lot of compliments about Chibnall's run, that there is a bit of an old school vibe to it, and sometimes I raise a brow at that, but sometimes I understand what they mean. And I'm realizing when it comes to the companions with Ryan, Yaz, and Graham, I'm noticing that yes, they aren't like as pivotal to the function of the plot like a lot of the companions in the new series. Like, you don't see them coming up with ideas and setting stuff up and all the stuff like the Doctor is. Kind of like what Clara did, or even Rose, or Donna, and all them. But the one thing I'm noticing that they do that is very old school is the fact that there's a lot of times where the companions interact with other characters and through their own experience enrich them. Because one thing about the classic series, a lot of times when it came to them going to different places and meeting other people, a lot of times you do have scenes where the companions are actually talking with them, trying to give them, you know, the motivation or the boost, or to give them some kind of solace. And the one thing I gotta say is that there were some great moments in this season where the companions really got to interact with other characters. I love the scene with Ryan and Dorothy in the TARDIS. I love Yaz with Nikola Tesla. And the one that really worked for me, I loved the fact that Graham, every time he's with Edison, he is throwing him all kinds of shade. He is the only one, and this is another real thing I found really funny. When the companions all see Tesla, Ryan and Yaz don't know who he is, but Graham is just over the moon. I mean, Ryan, all he knows is the friggin' car. That's it. But I kind of got a kick out of that because it does echo back to the tragedy of Tesla. It was the fact that despite all of his genius and all of his achievement, he was kind of buried by history because of the, you know, garishness and the self-serving propaganda of people like Thomas Edison. It's easy for us to go, Ryan, you idiot, because now a lot of us know who Tesla is, thanks to movies like The Prestige, and thanks to this being the age where we go back and look back at the footnotes of history and realize, oh, wait a minute, stuff got screwed up. So it's easier for us to look at Ryan like an idiot, but the thing is, his ignorance is kind of vital to the whole theme of the story and the ultimate tragedy of Nikola Tesla. So I kind of got a kick that both him and Yaz were kind of ignorant to it, whereas Graham is looking at them both like going, what's going on, you two? And I'm noticing that's not the first time either. I'm noticing that Ryan tends to be the more ignorant than the rest when it comes to history, but I kind of find that endearing about his character, is that he's kind of getting educated as time goes on. In some of the action sequences, of course, we got a great chase with Edison and Yaz running from the Skithra through the streets of New York. That was actually a really fun sequence. But there was a little bit in the beginning of the episode, during the chase, we didn't really get that many moments where Ryan had to struggle with his lack of coordination. But I'm noticing a couple times in this season, there are points where Ryan is actually freezes up. In this one, he's about to jump from one card to another, and he actually freezes up, and Yaz has to actually encourage him. And I was like, this is good stuff. This is times where these little quirks about these characters actually get to play some kind of part in upping the tension or showing what a character has to deal with in order to survive. And it was little things like that that's just really working for me and kind of enriching the characters as they should be. I got to talk about Jodie Whittaker in this one. This one, she was really on the money. And one thing I'm noticing that she is really good at, and you didn't really notice it until Resolution, and it kind of carried into Spyfall. And she is really good at staring down villain characters and, you know, giving them the ultimatums. And I gotta say, I'm noticing this very dark edge that's kind of poking out with the 13th Doctor in this one, and you get a vibe of maybe you know why, because of the revelations of what happened at the end of Spyfall. But at the same time, though, I really love seeing Jodie Whittaker just really showing some authority in the way she stares down with, you know, the villain of the week and is able to outwit them. And I gotta say, I love how she outwits the Queen of the Skithra. Of course, the other thing we've got to talk about is the Skithra itself. I suppose we can say it's in our headcanon that the Skithra are a sort of companion species to the Rachnos. I'm willing to take that. I don't see why not. They both have a similar skeletal structure. They're both arachnid-based beings, so why not? I'm good with it. But the real thing that is a standout about this episode is the fact that the Queen is played by Anjali Mohindra, who many Doctor fans will know and love and have a fond remembrance for as Rani Chandra from the Sarah Jane Adventures. And I didn't realize this until someone on Twitter pointed this out. This is a reunion because in Ronnie's debut episode, Bradley Walsh played Odd Bob the Clown in her debut episode, Day of the Clown. And that just kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, I forgot that Bradley Walsh is actually a really talented, versatile actor, and so talented that I didn't realize that that was him. Now the tables have turned, and Anjali Mohindra is now playing the villain of the week under heavy makeup. She is unrecognizable, and for extra measure, her performance, she looks like she's having a blast, and she's not going over the top like Sarah Parrish did as the Rachnos. She is actually doing a really good job just with her presence, just with her, and she has these really kind of freaky stares. She's very good at lurking, but she's also just really good at making you feel uncomfortable by her presence. I did think it was a touch weird that she didn't have a scorpion body like the rest of her kin. Then that wasn't really explained. I mean, production-wise, I know why. Budget. And in order to stage some of the scenes, she has to be humanoid. But it was still a touch odd. But it still didn't deter me because, again, I was geeking out the fact that it was Anjali Mohindra and the fact that she did a really good job in her performance, and because the Skithra were actually really well defined as an alien menace. I suppose I could come up with some complaints about the episode. Of course, it does the Avengers thing where you kill the head, the body will die. A concept with this where, in this case, kill the queen, the rest of them die. That does seem to be the quick get-out-of-jail-free card, which I guess, given Doctor Who in this 45-minute to an hour format like they have to do stuff like that. It's a trope, but again, it's stuff you just kind of have to live with given this format. It's not like the days of the old series where it was a serial, so they were able to build up the way he defeats the villains. Times have changed. Some things you just kind of have to take with a grain of salt. It's a frustrating trope, but you know what? If you develop it well enough, it's okay. And they did do a decent job developing the Skithra in this regard. So again, another historical episode of the Chibnall era that I absolutely adored and will love to watch over and over again. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that this was another misstep in Chibnall's reign? Or do you think that we are back in business after the disappointment of Orphan 55? Leave it in the comments below, and for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click, thou shalt be served.